With lots of people buying VR headsets for flight and driving simulators, I thought it'd be interesting to do a direct comparison between the Oculus Rift, which we've got in our right hand, and the HTC VIVE that we've got in our left hand. Now, to do this direct comparison, and it is just a comparison of the basic visual fidelity of each screen, we've installed Live for Speed on 2 computers, and we've got both headsets plugged in and ready to go. On the big screen to the right, close to the camera, you'll see we've got the Oculus Rift view, and on the little screen to the left, you'll see we've got the VIVE view. Now, of course, you can't see these views, and especially not through the webcam of the screens very clearly, and even then you won't be able to gauge what it actually looks like from the recording. So you're pretty much going to have to go by what I say. And this is where I really recommend people, if you're going to go and get one of these devices, you need to go out and try them in a shop, because VR headsets are very much like buying a TV, a projector, or a hi-fi, where you really need to try it before you buy it and get an idea of what works well for you, because people have different shaped heads, people have different quality of vision, and there's loads of different personal variables that might make you want one headset over the other. With that in mind though, we'll try and do our best, and we're going to pop the headsets on and go from one to the other like someone doing some kind of weird VR headset wine tasting session. So I'll just pop the Rift on first and have a little look around, taking the view of glorious BLGP, the classic BLGP that we've visited many a time on the screen since, I think Live for Speed came out in 2004, but we've been playing Live for Speed since about 2006 or 7. So this feels like home. And of course, with the Rift, everything, tracking absolutely fantastic, pops on your head, can look around, you feel like you're inside a car, really good. Now, as we're saying, I'm not going to be driving in this video, although we've got the catered cockpit with the steering wheel and everything set up. I want to do a like-for-like comparison. I can't have the rig plugged into 2 computers at the same time and drive around. We have already driven this with both headsets, before, so that sort of aids in this comparison. But here I just really wanted to do a sort of static, mull around the cockpit, and then see if I can pick things out that are immediately apparent when swapping over. So looking around the car, the tracking, as I say, there's no glitching out of the tracking or anything, and I've noticed this with the Rift, there's no immediate issues with the tracking with the consumer Rift. With the DK2, if you did stuff like this, sometimes the tracking would drop out. The Rift, consumer Rift, does a really fantastic job of pretty much any conceivable angle you would look in a car, even if you're going to do your old, the old reverse, looking over your shoulder reversing, the tracking did not drop out at all, and I've just got the camera over there, so absolutely fantastic. So it does drop out if I put my hand over the screen where blocking the view of the camera, but you're not going to do that. So let's pop on the VIVE and see what this is like. There we go. It's a bouquet of virtual reality, the VIVE. So we've got that then. We've got the frame rate up there. That computer that I've got this on is actually, this is quite interesting. I've got the VIVE on a I think it's an i3 with my old GTX 760, or it's a low, a low end. It was the mid-end previous gen graphics card. This is my partner's computer, and it actually runs Live for Speed with the VIVE at 90 FPS and no issues, which was a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting it to work, but it means I can do this like-for-like comparison. There's no stutter or frame rate issues that are altering things. So have a little look around, and as you see, the tracking again completely solid. Could do the reverse view. Whoops, I punched myself in the face. Yeah, my mic's fine. Punched myself in the face. Look over the shoulder, all good. And so that's pretty much comparable. Now, so let's look at the main differences, popping them, going backwards and forwards. The main differences. The biggest difference, or most immediate difference, that has the biggest impact, is that the VIVE screen feels about twice as bright as the Oculus Rift. In fact, in absolute comparison, the difference could be if I was to wear sunglasses. That's basically how much darker the Vive. If I was to go out on a really bright sunny, super bright sunny day, and then pop on sunglasses, not ridiculous dark sunglasses, but basic sunglasses with a bit of tint on them, that's how much darker the Oculus Rift is to the HTC VIVE. It is actually quite a striking difference in brightness. Substantially different, actually. I mean, with the Vive, looking at that hill, it's like, oh, that hill's really bright, it's been lit by the sun. Looking at the sun, it's not, it's going through a cloud there, it's not as bright as if I was to stare into the sun in real life in the clouds, but it comes very close to real world brightness, and it looks very vivid, especially in relation to the Rift. So I think that's actually the most noticeable difference, is that the Rift is a lot darker than the Vive. Now, I guess if you put the Rift on your head for a while, then your eyes might accommodate to that a little bit. But I mean, I've noticed this as well, driving project cars in different games and playing the Climb, and then going back to games with the Vive. I've especially noticed that the Rift is a lot darker, and going from side to side like that is even more apparent. In terms of in this car now, in terms of let's have a look at the sort of God rays and the flaring of the screens. Not really noticeable, to be honest, on the Rift. I think it can be a problem on the Rift with if you've got a very small bright object, but if I turn my head a little bit to the left, I've got the sort of track details on the right there. It does ghost, it looks a little bit smudgy, but you would not notice any ghosting in this situation. When I turn my head a little bit, there's a bit of ghosting at the top. It just looks like a little bit of sort of light moving across a smudge on some shades. Not really a problem in Live for Speed, and not that noticeable. No, you can't see any any of the Fresnel lens ridges or anything on the Rift. So ghosting not particularly an issue with Live for Speed with the Oculus Rift. And now, here we go, you see the cables have started to pull down, so I've had to adjust them. There you go. You have to get the Vive head strap down at the back, otherwise it's a lot less comfortable on your face. So actually, with the Vive, there's a little bit more ghosting. Again, it actually is fairly similar. There's a tiny bit more ghosting with the Vive in this scene. Probably, it seems, because it's actually there's a lot more contrast in this scene with the Vive, but there's definitely a little bit more ghosting from the rear of the car in terms of it lighting up the edge of the Fresnel lenses a tiny bit. If you focus on the ghosting and look directly at the lenses and the ghosting on the lenses, or the God rays on the lens, you can see the sort of ridges of the Fresnel. But if you're looking straight ahead and driving, you can't really notice it. As I turn my head, you sort of see almost like a little bit of a lens flare going across it. It's not as bad as a Michael Bay movie, but it's surprisingly, with Live for Speed, it's actually a little bit more noticeable with the Vive. The lens flares are a little bit more noticeable with the Vive here than with the Rift. So, but not distracting, but it is slightly more visible. But both headsets do have the ghosting there. I'd say in both cases, utterly negligible amount of ghosting, but a little bit more on the Vive than the Rift. Pop the Rift back on. Let's have a look at the image clarity. What I want to do is I'm going to get this perfectly in the sweet spot, or like dead on, so I can see the absolute image clarity, so it's as crisp as possible. I have perfect vision. I have really good vision, so I don't know if that makes me a better judge of this than someone with a slightly worse vision, but you know, my vision is fine. And so looking straight ahead, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to look straight at the lights on the start-finish line and move my eyes around inside of the screen. If I look right to the edge, to the bottom, everything is pretty much in focus for the whole image. The whole screen is in focus there. So that's really nice. Just sort of looking at my mirror, just glancing at the mirror there. Yeah, the whole image is in focus, and I think that's what Oculus have done a really good job with that. That obviously because of the resolution, it goes blurred into the distance, and there's a bit of shimmer from, I think it's the texture, maybe the mip mapping. There's a bit of shimmer. That's less of an issue when you've got more AA running. And other post-processing effects. With Live for Speed, it's a very raw game because of it's slightly aged. It's like a fine wine that's been in the pantry for a while. But because of that, you do get this sort of shimmer on some of the textures. I think it might be the mip mapping, probably using the wrong words. But in terms of the actual image clarity, the Rift does a fantastic job of the whole scene, regardless of where you move your eyes looking around. Once you've got the headset in the right place, everything is sharp that should be sharp. Up, down, left, right, yeah, really good. I can see the dials really clearly. I can read all the numbers on the dials really clearly. This is a standard road car. I can see that the door handle is flat and not modelled. All looks really crisp and really nice. Let's pop the Vive back on. I need a little a glass to swirl and spit into in between headsets. We don't want to get drunk, VR drunk. So put the Vive back on, do the head wiggle, get the pull the cables up that they move. There you go. Okay, so actually I'd say in the center, the image on the Vive is a little bit more punchy, actually, a little bit sharper than the Rift. I'm not sure if that's, again, maybe something to do with the contrast of the image, of the brightness and the contrast, making things look a bit more punchy. The pixels are a tiny bit more noticeable on the Vive than the Rift. In both cases, the pixels really, you know, they're both there on both headsets, and the difference between them is so negligible. In terms of the actual, I guess you call it, you know, the screen door, slightly more noticeable on the Vive than the Rift, but in both cases it's just there and it's sort of ignorable once you're doing stuff. But yeah, it looks slightly more crisp in the centre on the Vive than the Rift. Looking to the edges of the screen though, moving my eyes around the screen, and it starts to blur off at the edges. So on the Rift, it's in focus across the whole view. Even when you look left and right with your eyes, and you sort of, you know, glancing to the left and right, it's completely in focus. On the Vive, it's sharper in the middle and looks more punchy, but towards the edges, if I look at my mirror, though I can clearly see what's on the mirror, and if someone was making a pass, it is slightly blurred, and so I'd have a tendency to sort of want to nudge my head a bit, which I probably do naturally, but the edges of the screen on the Vive, when moving your eyes instead of moving your head, are definitely slightly out of focus, slightly blurred compared to the Rift. Blocking my tracking then, the headset turned off. That is a slight difference actually. If you block the tracking with the Vive, it's harder to block the tracking because you've got the two Lighthouse units, or you can just use one. But if you do block the tracking, the Vive cuts the screen out to off, so you don't get motion sick ideally. But with the Rift, what happens is it kind of, I think it defaults back to the IMU tracking, and then sort of, I don't think it even cuts out, it just sort of glides around a little bit and jiggles a bit, and then I think it cuts out. I'm not sure, but I've definitely had it cut out with the Rift when I've with the Vive when I've blocked it, and it just cuts the screen out. And I've definitely noticed when I've put my hands in the way of the Rift, the image will sort of move in a weird way, and it's not very comfortable. But yeah, so slightly sharper in the centre with the Vive, slightly less sharper at the edges, sort of goes to being out of focus. But I really like the crispness that you get in the center from the Vive. It's more punchy. It's a bit, to describe it to those of you that have used a DK2 or used a VR headset, the Vive out of the box, in terms of visual clarity, looks a tiny bit like if you got you put Sweet FX on, if you guys remember that with iRacing. So another thing people wanted me to talk about was field of view of the headset. So what I'm going to do, this game has the field of view set to a default 1:1 setting for both VR headsets. So it should be the same. If you're familiar with driving simulators, often you can center with your seat, move your seat forwards, backwards, and around. And so this isn't a scientific test of field of view. What you would need is a definitively drawn object that's actually in exactly the same distance in 3D space, or some kind of camera system to actually do this properly. But from a basic, as a sort of wonky non-scientific test, we're just going to look straight ahead at the lights and see what I'm going to sort of look left and right, see what I can make out visually. Actually, I should probably I'm going to use the bottom of the dials on the dashboard until I can only see them when I'm just looking at them, and then just look straight ahead and see what's in my view there. So I can see both pillars of the both sides of the start finish line lights. Pretty good field of view. I mean, I'm having driven with this with Project Cars and done racing online in both headsets. The field of view isn't really a problem in either case. It's not like a real world field of view, but it's very wide in general. It feels a lot like if you were to go karting and wear a helmet. There we go, cables riding up. So one thing that really irritates me with the Vive is the head strap and how the cables ride up and how it doesn't always just go on seamlessly. You sort of have to develop a Vive placement technique. So let's get our thing. There we go. So looking straight ahead, I can see sort of, in terms of the start-finish line, I can see an extra, at that distance, an extra metre or so. The field of view horizontally isn't that different between the two headsets, actually. It does have a slightly wider field of view, and vertically, the vertical field of view, again, I can look all the way to the top of the screen and not... well, if I push it to my face, I can look all the way to the top of the screen and not see the actual headset blocking me. So you get a full, not at the bottom. When I look at the bottom, I can see the bottom of the headset and the nose piece. But when I got it on like that, which is pretty much how I'd normally wear it, you could kind of see like a circle around at the top. So it's almost the full vertical of your view, and then the sides cut off in a fairly similar way to the Oculus Rift. But I have to say, I think it's the brightness which gives the illusion of it feeling more open. It's like if you decorated a room. The brightness makes the room feel more spacious. And because the Oculus Rift screen is so dull in comparison to the Vive screen, it makes it feel more squished and small, I think. Interestingly as well, if you look around, when you look around this screen with your eyes, so you're sort of looking left, right, up and down with your eyes in the screen, there seems to be less in the way on the Vive internally. When I look around with the Rift, look left and right, there seems to be like a larger, I don't know if it's a gap in between the two eyes or it's where these two screens are separated, but there's much more noticeably something kind of in the middle of your view. I think your brain fills it out in the same way that you're not aware of your nose on a day-to-day usage of your face. You don't really notice your nose that much, but when you're making a concerted effort to look at the differences of the displays, which is absurd when you're actually playing VR games, you're not going to be making this much of an effort. You do notice that there's more sort of more of a nose-like black in the centre of the Rift screen. And the vertical field of view, if I look straight up, I can actually see the flat roof, the flat edge of the screen on the Rift. If I look down, I just see a similar, the bottom shape of the Rift is actually fairly comparable to the bottom shape of the Vive, where it just curves around like some kind of digital gas mask of the future. So, popping them on and off individually, I think I've covered most of the points there. I have to say, it's surprising to me that the God rays in Live for Speed in this situation are actually worse on the Vive than the Rift. I wouldn't have expected that, because in general, from experience of using the Rift and when doing other games, normally the God rays on the Rift are worse. But in this specific case, in this instance, it's actually worse on the Vive than the Rift. So it will vary from game to game and scene to scene as to which headset will do the God rays better or worse. But I have to say, in general, again, it's the brightness and I think the central clarity of the Vive makes me feel more like I'm actually here. If I was to go, which one feels more like reality, or which one places me in the game more, I think the Vive feels better. In my opinion, the Vive feels more immersive as a VR headset in this situation. So there you have it. And I think that's why, in general, when it comes to the raw visual, the raw nature of the visual image, I tend to go towards the direction of the Vive, and in terms of VR and feeling present in another location, I tend to go towards the direction of the Vive. It's worth saying the Rift is slightly light in the face, and as you can see in the, whilst I was making this video or doing this video, this issue with the cables keeps happening. So there's annoyances with the Vive in terms of its strap design for me, that when you're driving and you've got going, it's okay, but it's not as seamless as the Rift in terms of just popping it on your head and getting going. And then if you turn your head really quickly like this, although, I mean, if you're driving normally, what you tend to do, I've exaggerated it in previous videos to sort of demonstrate the head tracking, but when I'm driving properly and more seriously, you tend to sort of turn your head more like you'll do a quick snap, because you're looking to check your mirrors to make sure the guy's not going up the inside. But even with that, what you notice with the Vive is that it shuffles a little bit on your head, because the foam has a bit of wobble to it, or it's got a bit of give to it, because the foam isn't as hard as the Rift, and also the front of the Vive is slightly heavier than the Rift, and the strap design I don't think is as good on the Vive as the Rift. So when you do that, you get a little bit of wobble with the headset, which is quite annoying. And a nice thing with the Rift is that you can shake your head like an absolute lunatic, like a monkey falling out of a tree. And this isn't on as tight as the Vive. You can shake your head like a monkey falling out of a tree and then bouncing off a cliff face, and for the most part it stays pretty stable. If you shake your head, it's got a little bit of wobble to it, but nowhere near as bad as the Vive, and it doesn't feel as heavy on the front of your face. I just did notice though, if you don't have the sweet spot exactly right with the Rift, and you turn your head, the whole world starts warping. Like, the sweet spot's right here in terms of general focus and focus to the edge, but it's not right in terms of the world not distorting, because I don't know what causes it, but I have noticed that with the Rift, and that is something that makes me feel a bit queasy. The more I notice it, and the more irritating it's become. But there you go. I think that's as good as it's going to get. It's so stupid. You need to go to a shop and try them out for yourself to get a good idea. But I'm sure this will help some people who are sort of on the fence. I guess if you're lucky enough to live in Europe, what you can do is you could buy one when they're actually in the shops, or they're actually available with immediate delivery. You could just buy one, and you've got a week, 2 weeks. Well, you have to set this distance seller regulations are 7 days in the UK. I think it might even be 14 days. I think HTC support told me, where you can literally try it and as long as you return it in same condition that you got it, you can just return it. So that can be a good way to decide if it's for you or not, and that's what I'd generally recommend if you can't get it to a store. Online retailers hate me for saying that, I'm sure. But yeah, the Vive definitely makes me feel as if I'm here more than the Rift, and I think the biggest contributing factors to that are the brightness and the raw clarity, especially immediately in front of me, and then it sort of goes blurred exactly like the Rift into the distance, but it's just more brighter, and there's more visual clarity there, which makes it feel more realistic in my opinion. So, well, I hope that video helps. A little bit convoluted, a little bit strange, but thanks for watching. Drop some questions in the comments if you want me to test anything out. We will do some actual testing and record it of driving these side by side in more of a real test. As I say, this was a focus on the raw headset visuals when it comes to sat in a car. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe, like. See you guys in the next video that we do. Goodbye.